If you scroll through social media today, it feels like a public war zone. In one corner, baby boomers are accused of hoarding wealth, protecting outdated systems, and refusing to step aside. In the other corner, millennials and Gen Z are louder than ever about burnout, crushing rent, student loans, identity politics, and a future that feels permanently postponed. The noise is constant. The outrage never sleeps. But look carefully. There is a third group sitting quietly in the background. Not trending. Not posting 10-part threads. Not making reaction videos. Just watching it all unfold with a cup of coffee and that faint, ironic half-smile that says, "Yeah, I've seen this movie before." That's Generation X. Born roughly between 1965 and 1980, Gen X is the forgotten middle child of modern American history. Too young to inherit the boomer golden age of cheap housing and pensions. Too old to be framed as the struggling youth. Most of the time, they are barely mentioned. Until something breaks. And then suddenly, they're the ones expected to fix it. Gen X did not become invisible by accident. They were trained to disappear. And when you grow up believing nobody is coming to save you, it doesn't just shape your lifestyle, it rewires your personality. To understand the Gen X psyche, you have to begin with childhood. And the most iconic image of that childhood isn't a family dinner table. It's a house key hanging from a shoelace around a child's neck. In the 1970s and 80s, American family life shifted dramatically. Divorce rates climbed. Dual-income households became normal. More women entered the workforce, a necessary and powerful social change. But it created a gap in after-school care that no one had fully prepared for. So millions of children became latchkey kids. Picture it. It's 3:12 p.m. The bus drops you off. You walk home alone. The neighborhood hums quietly. You unlock the front door and step into silence. No adult voice. No supervision. Just the refrigerator buzzing and the television flickering in the background. You make your own snack. You start homework alone. If you fall and scrape your knee, you rinse it and move on. If you feel scared, you swallow it. If you feel lonely, you don't even have language for it yet. Psychologists call this benign neglect. Not abuse, not cruelty, just emotional absence in a physically safe environment. But that environment wires the brain in specific ways. When you are 8 years old and no one is coming, you internalize a rule. Help is not automatic. Comfort is not guaranteed. Attention is optional. That is where Gen X independence begins. But it's also where something deeper forms. Because when you grow up unseen, you don't just become self-sufficient. You become strategically small. You take up less space. You minimize needs. You solve problems quietly. Over time, that coping strategy becomes identity. The latchkey kid didn't stop needing connection. They simply stopped expecting it. They grew into adults who can survive almost anything, but struggle to ask for help. If this moved you, comment 9 right now. If it didn't, comment 0. Your voice matters. Take 1 second and share it. Adults who can endure pain, but don't know how to be held in it. That is the Gen X origin story. Not spoiled, not broken, self-raised. One of the biggest misconceptions about Gen X is that they're emotionally cold. They aren't cold, they're compressed. They feel deeply, sometimes more deeply than they allow anyone to see. But they were raised in a culture that treated emotional expression as excess. If you were sad, you were told to toughen up. If you were anxious, you were told to deal with it. If you cried, you were dramatic. So they developed emotional minimalism, not expressing much, not asking for much, not appearing to need much. A Gen Xer rarely says, "I'm overwhelmed." They say, "I'm good." They rarely say, "I miss you." They text, "You still alive?" When they love you, they may not write poetry. They fix your sink. They show up when your car breaks down. They handle the crisis before you even notice it forming. That is their love language. Sarcasm isn't cruelty. It's emotional packaging. It's how they confess vulnerability without fully exposing it. It's how they stay connected without surrendering control. Gen X didn't grow up learning how to talk about feelings. They learned how to function through them. And here's the paradox. The same trait that made them strong also made them lonely. Hyper-independence is their superpower and their prison. When independence begins in survival, it doesn't feel optional. It feels mandatory. Not, I can do this, but I have to. That subtle difference shapes everything. It creates adults who feel uncomfortable receiving support, who don't vent because it feels pointless, who don't reach out because somewhere inside, an 8-year-old voice still whispers, "No one's coming." They may have careers, families, communities, but inside, there is often a quiet isolation that comes from being the strong one for too long. If hyper-independence is the engine, cynicism is the armor. Gen X did not grow up in an era of blind institutional trust. Watergate revealed that presidents could lie. The Cold War normalized existential threat. The Challenger explosion shattered technological optimism on live television. They learned early that systems fail. And then the 1980s arrived. Glossy, loud, hyper-commercial. Raised on non-stop advertising, Gen X developed a finely tuned internal detector for hype. That's where whatever comes from. Not apathy, self-protection. Whatever doesn't mean I don't care. It means I won't emotionally invest in something that smells fake. Gen X doesn't fall for shiny promises easily. Political slogans, corporate mission statements, viral trends promising transformation in 30 days. They've seen too much collapse. To earn their respect, you must be authentic, not polished, real. Because for Gen X, the ugly truth is safer than the beautiful lie. Cognitively, Gen X holds a rare position in history. They were raised analog. They rode bikes without GPS, got lost and figured it out, memorized phone numbers, read maps, experienced boredom. And boredom built creativity and patience. Then, as they entered adulthood, the digital revolution exploded. Personal computers, email, dial-up internet, cell phones. They didn't just witness it, they adapted to it. Gen X is psychologically bilingual. They can reset a router and still know how to survive without one. They understand hierarchy and flexibility, corporate structure and startup chaos. But that constant adaptation has a cost. They never got to fully relax into either world. They are helping their aging parents navigate passwords while training younger coworkers on legacy systems. Two realities, two speeds, one nervous system. Now add another layer. Gen X is in their 40s and 50s. They are the sandwich generation. On one side, aging boomer parents with medical needs, insurance complexities, cognitive decline, doctor appointments, late-night emergency calls, financial navigation. On the other side, children growing up in an economy defined by high tuition, housing crises, social media anxiety, and unstable career paths. In the middle, careers that no longer promise pensions or long-term security. Many entered adulthood during the dot-com crash, took financial hits in 2008, navigated pandemic instability. They are still paying mortgages, still carrying debt, still wondering if retirement will ever feel real. Psychologically, this creates a unique burnout. Not dramatic, not viral, functional. Gen X doesn't collapse publicly. They wake up early, help their kids, check on their parents, show up to meetings, handle crises, fall asleep exhausted, repeat. This is high-functioning depression. You can be productive and still be drowning. And because they were trained not to need much, they rarely say, "I can't do this anymore." They say, "I'm fine," and keep going. In relationships, they can seem tough, direct, blunt, but underneath is care expressed differently. They want their children to feel supported in ways they weren't, yet they still believe struggle builds resilience. They are pro-freedom, but allergic to performance. They respect authenticity, but distrust grandstanding. Too detached for boomers, too blunt for Gen Z, often feeling misunderstood by both. And now, something subtle is shifting. Many Gen Xers are reaching a pivot point. They are leaving high-paying jobs that no longer feel aligned, starting businesses, simplifying, creating art, downsizing, not because they are impulsive, because they finally see clearly. They played the game, and the prize wasn't worth the cost. For decades, they survived by disappearing. Now they are beginning to reappear, learning that independence does not require isolation, that strength does not require silence, that asking for help does not erase resilience. The latchkey kid who stopped expecting comfort is slowly learning something radical. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to take up space. And that may be the most powerful evolution of all. Generation X was never loud, but they were always there, steady, adaptable, carrying more than most people ever realized. If this perspective helped you understand them, or maybe even understand yourself, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who grew up with that key around their neck, and subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology shaping our generations.